Okay, guys, welcome to episode 3. Got really awesome guest today. Okay, she's been very brave. But before I go on and we start talking to our guest, just going to quickly big shout out to our sponsor, Cannibal Coffee. Yeah, that's my favourite one is the Cannibal Blend. That's brilliant, guys. If you like coffee, go to their website, www.cannibalcoffee.co.uk. You can always use our discount code, which is Legion Strong 77. Okay, but like I say, really good coffee. We won't be plugging it otherwise. So we're going to welcome our next guest on. So she's had a very difficult year, to say the least. And what we're going to do today is going to just find out her story and, just let you guys know, and hopefully it'll help some people out there. Okay, so welcome to the show, Stroma.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for being so brave today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Like you say, if it can help at least one person, then that's a job well done.
Yes, exactly, and that's
Just for everyone who's listening as well, we had a quick brief chat before obviously we went live, and this is actually the first time that Stroma shared these stories outside of her close friends group. So extremely brave for you to do this and put it out into the public domain. It's I think extremely brave, and
it's maybe time to talk about it, I think. Okay. So now that I feel able to, I mean, there was a time back last year that I couldn't have done. I wouldn't have been able to do it. So this is, I feel a lot more comfortable now.
Oh, good. Before we go on and get into the story, what we're going to do is obviously find a little bit more about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the southwest of Scotland, a little place called Cowan, I was born in a different place and then moved to Cowan with my 4 brothers and my parents. So the house was pretty full on a lot of the time.
House.
If you think with your 3 girls, right, you've got a busy house, then the 5 of us, it was noisy to say the least, shall we say. But fun.
Did you say you was the only girl?
Yes, I got 2 older brothers that are twins, Ross and Alistair, and then the 2 younger ones who are not twins. And then, I'm slap bang right in the middle. But we're all so close in age. We're maybe 6 years, I think, from youngest to the twins. Yeah, it was pretty hectic.
Are you close as a family as well? So
we are. Close. I mean, when we lived all in the same house, maybe not so close with my brothers, because you know what it's like. You don't want your sister hanging around with you. You don't want your little brothers trailing along with you. So there was always fights. My parents will always remind me now of arguing with my brothers and them arguing with me. Generally, they would make me cry a lot by stealing my toys or pushing me down or things like that. But they just say it's character building. Which is what I tell the kids now.
Stealing their toys, are you?
They steal each other's.
So obviously from Scotland, you joined the RAF.
Yes. So I think when I was about 15, 16, my brothers left home. I was younger than that, actually. When my brothers were 16, so they're a year older than me, they left home to join the Royal Marines. And
No, go on. Let's not get political here.
No. But when they joined up, I thought that, well, it looked kind of cool. I liked the fact that they did a lot of fizz, not kind of fully understanding just how difficult it was for them. I thought, I can do something like that. And then when I chatted to my brother about it, he was like, right, don't join the army, don't join the Navy. He says, so really the Air Force is probably a good one for you to join. I was like, okay. So I had a bit of a think about it. It was either that or the police. I knew I wanted to do something uniform, because I think a uniformed profession to me back then looked pretty cool. And I think I just so happened across the careers office for the Air Force before, went by the police one, as it were. So that was back in 97. And then when I put my paperwork in to join, I was accepted in 98. So I was 19 when I joined up. And I knew I wanted to do something to do with languages or something along those lines. But I don't know if you've ever come across any of the aptitude tests for things like that, but for linguists, it was nails. It was really quite hard. And I thought I was quite good at languages when I was at school, but not enough to be a linguist. But they accepted me into telecoms, and they were like, oh, you'll still be using languages, it'll still be really great. So I thought, yeah, okay, we'll do that. So I joined up 98, and I didn't ever look back on it. It was spent 12 years in the Air Force, and it was literally some of the best years of my life. But I did 2 trades as well. I was telecoms for about 6 years, and then for the rest of my 12, I was a physical trainer, so a PTI, which was a lot of fun as well. So yeah, it was a little bit different.
Yeah. And then you when did you get out? Sorry, you said 12 years.
I came out, and so I did 12 years, and I came out in 2010, I think it was, because I'd met Paddy back in 2005, and when we had Lewis in 2008, I knew I didn't want to stay in, because back then, I don't know whether it was the same when you were in, Ray, but at some point they changed the rules on co-location. So because we weren't married at the time, we wouldn't have been able to move into married quarters for one, or Paddy wouldn't have been able to live with us. I would have been able to move in with a child, but not as a family with Paddy. So there could have been a chance that we would have been posted opposite ends of the country, and because of the job I was in as a PTI, I was either Wales or Scotland. Really, that was the 2 main ones, and we didn't really sort of feel comfortable with splitting the family up, so we both agreed that 12 years, then we'll come out, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there. So yeah, I came out, and Paddy came out in 2009, and then I came out in 2010. But Paddy was already living down here. He got a job down Borden Way, this neck of the woods, and he travelled most weekends. So he'd come up on a Friday, travel back down on a very early Monday morning, and we did that for about a year until I had served my time, and then it was time for me to move down. So he would argue that I followed him.
Yeah. So did you guys meet whilst you were both serving, or was it just a coincidence that you were both in at the same time?
No, we met while we were in. We had a lot of mutual friends, but we didn't really know it at the time. So we actually met at a mutual friend's wedding, and they were trying to set him up with somebody else, and I was there with a friend of mine, and they were.
He's mine.
But, no, it was a bit strange, because I think we'd met before, a couple of years beforehand, but he came onto my unit for a course, and I remember having a brief conversation with him, but that's it. It was only ever a conversation, and then off he went. I always said that I wasn't ready for him then, because he was part of the arrivals brief, shall we say. Should ask him about that next time.
Yeah, I will do.
We're going to have to get him on for his own episode just for that.
But yeah, the wedding we met at a couple of years later after that. We just got talking, and we hit it off, and yeah, it's the rest, shall we say, is history. Yeah. So in fact, the first time I met him, he walked up. There's a group of us girls stood there, and he walked up and he went, "So ladies, who wants my jacket?" I was like, okay. Amazing. I quite like you.
And you quite liked him for that? You only have yourself to blame then, really.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant.
No, he's a good lad, isn't he?
He's
a good guy, definitely.
So when did you start? When did you actually move down to Portsmouth?
We moved down in So Paddy, let's say moved 2009. I followed down early 2010, and we kind of, well, I came down for a month beforehand looking for somewhere to live, and I was so shocked at how few places there were to actually move to, because we owned a house up in Lincoln.
Yeah.
So we were moving down into rented accommodation, but we didn't know where to settle really. So we came down 2010, we found a place over in Whiteley, and that was only ever a stopgap, but we ended up living there for a few years, and then moved over to Portchester where we are now. But again, it was I think Paddy was in Afghanistan at the time when I found somewhere to live, and he said, "Oh, just put the deposit down on it." I said, "Yeah, but we've not seen it yet." And he went, "It's okay, I just put the deposit down and we'll worry about it when I got home." So when he got home, he's like, "Right, should we go and have a look in the window?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." And he looked around the house and he's like, "What have you done?" Like, oh. And then he said for me to put the deposit down, and he's like, "I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate this place." Anyway, we moved in. He says, "Right, this is only ever going to be for 6 months. This is it." But we ended up staying there. It was home for 4 years, and we had our daughter in that house as well. And then we moved to where we are now, the street that we're in now. And we've actually had 2 houses on this street. We rented a little bit, like 20 doors down, and then bought this house maybe 3 years ago. So this is home. This is very, very much home now for us. And the kids are at school and they're settled now, and they have all the friends. So I'd be hard pushed to want to move away from.
Move out of that, yeah.
Yeah, and the weather in the south is way better. Much better.
It's probably too hot for you, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm a warm-blooded Scot, I think.
Really?
I don't like the cold. Don't like the cold.
Yeah.
No chance.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, okay, what we'll do now, we'll talk about basically when you found out that that you had cancer. Okay.
Yes. So it's kind of a bit of a long story leading up to it, because I originally found a lump, just because I've always been quite vigilant with things like that, because my aunt had breast cancer, and she sadly passed away a few years ago now. So I've always been quite vigilant with things like this, shall we say. So when I noticed a lump, I went straight to the doctor, and I've been before for various things like that, but it's all turned out to be, nothing to worry about. Yeah. So this was 2018 in the summer. I had an appointment with the doctor, and he said, "Oh, you're too young for breast cancer. It's it's so far down on my list of things that it could be that I don't think we have to worry about it. But we'll send you off to the breast clinic just so that you can have peace of mind." So, yeah, I was happy with that. I wasn't worried. At the time, I wasn't worried at all. Yeah. Because I thought, I'm too young. It can't happen. Only ever happens to people you read about and things like that. Sadly, that's obviously not true.
See it in the press and
you read about it, but it doesn't ever happen, which is a bit of a strange thing. So when I went up to the hospital, they did the ultrasound, and they were like, "Yeah, can't see anything. It's all okay." So they said, "Just keep an eye on it. If anything changes, come back and see us." So, but we went away perfectly happy, not worried about it at all. Oh, it'll go. It's fine. But it stayed the same. It didn't change. It didn't get worse. It didn't get better. It just was there, and I was conscious of it, but not worried. Looking back on it. And then in the November, December, it changed quite dramatically to the fact that, my breast was rock solid. My nipple had inverted. I had all the telltale signs. So I went straight back to the doctor and said, "Look, I'm really worried about this." So this was a locum doctor as well. And I could see it in his face, and I could see that he was quite concerned. And he says, "Well, you've actually got a lump under your arm as well." So, and that's for people that maybe aren't aware, you have lymph nodes under your arm as well. So you have them under your arm and sort of up around your collarbone, along various other places. So he said that he was quite concerned because there was a lump under there as well. And I think at that point, for me, the alarm bells started ringing. And at this point, I hadn't told my family. you know, my parents or anyone. It was just me and Paddy that knew at this point, because so that was in December. I went for this appointment. When I went up to the breast clinic, it was in December, and my brother's wedding was in December, and I didn't want to unduly worry the family if there was nothing to worry about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So when I went up to the clinic, I was up first thing in the morning, and I actually spent all morning at the breast clinic. They did ultrasounds, they did biopsies under my arm. I think they took 5 biopsies in total. And at that point, I was really quite upset because Paddy wasn't with me at that appointment, because I kept saying to him, "Oh, it's nothing to worry about. You know, it's fine. It'll just be another go home and, you know, watchful wait kind of thing." But when they took the biopsies, the doctor that took them says, "Look, we don't know what this is. We can't tell whether it's sinister or not, but we need to take these biopsies. And you're not going to get the results back for a couple of weeks." So when she said that, that's when I started thinking, I got like a feeling inside thinking, this is maybe not what you want it to be, kind of thing. And I got out of the hospital and I phoned Paddy, and I just burst into tears, and he's like, "Right, I'm going to come and meet you." And then I phoned my mum and told my mum, but told her not to tell my dad, because I didn't want to worry him, because my aunt that passed away was my dad's sister. So I just said to Mum, "Look, I don't know whether it's anything to worry about, but just keep it to yourself for now." And then I had to wait 2 weeks, and in that time we had Christmas. We actually had our Legion Christmas party the day I had the biopsies. So I'd come to the pub to meet all you guys when we had the do on the upstairs. Can't remember the name of the place.
Wine Vaults, was it?
Yeah.
It was a small place, wasn't it, at the top?
Yeah. So I'd actually had the biopsies that day, and I was quite probably not in the best frame of mind to be out, but I was determined to go out and enjoy it, and I was going to enjoy Christmas, and we had my brother's wedding on the 27th. So I had to try and put all of that emotion to the side and be a proper mummy at Christmas and enjoy Christmas and the wedding and you know, everything. So it was quite challenging, shall we say.
It must have been so hard just trying to put that brave face on, but in the back of your mind constantly thinking or worrying about not knowing, really.
Yeah, it really was, because it was the uncertainty that was the hard thing. And when I went up to Scotland just before Christmas, and I caught my mum on her own, and I'd said, "Look, can you have a look and, you know, just see?" And maybe Mum didn't know what she was looking at, but I could see she was really worried. And it was kind of hard to put things to the back of my mind. Because people say to you, "Oh, just put it to the back of my mind and don't think about it." But when it's something as big as a cancer diagnosis, you can't really put that to the back of your mind, especially when you don't have any information at all. I mean, usually the biopsies would have been back a bit quicker, but because we had Christmas in between, you know, it was such a long, agonizing wait. And at my brother's wedding, I think I probably had a bit too much gin. It was a bit of a blowout, and I caught my other brother, my second youngest brother, it was my youngest brother's wedding, and I caught my second youngest brother, and I ended up telling him, and he's actually had some work published for cancer research, and he knows where to look for all this information, and I think I could see it in his face that he possibly thought that it was cancer as well. But yeah, it was a challenging couple of weeks waiting for those results. And I was due back in on the 3rd of January, so the day after Paddy's 40th birthday. I was back in at the hospital for the results, and that was just a horrible day. Not a nice day at all.
I suppose all that time as well, that you're not sleeping well, are you? You're constantly thinking of that. That's keeping you awake.
Yeah, I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty awful, and especially the night before I got the results back was just, I was up most of the night then. And my appointment wasn't until something like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So it was really, really late on.
Waiting all day.
Yeah, so we'd waiting all day. We'd been out. We went out the day before for Paddy's birthday, but neither of us were really up for doing anything. And it was his 40th as well, and I felt so bad that I was letting him down on his 40th. Yeah. But you know, we got to the hospital and we waited and we waited and we waited some more, and it was about an hour, I think, and the waiting room was empty. There was no people in there by the time we got called through. And when they called us through, the doctor just sat down and he looked at me, and I was just like, oh shit. And I knew exactly from the look in his face, and he says, yeah, I'm sorry to say that it is cancer. He says, but we'll do what we can to obviously to sort it. He says, we can fix this. He says, we'll fix it. But the rest of the appointment was a bit fuzzy. I don't really remember much of the appointment. I know there was a lot of tears, and I was really tired as well. I was emotionally drained as well. Yeah, and we got pulled into a little side room after we spoke to the doctor. Pulled into a side room by the nurse, and she gave me a lot of pamphlets, a lot of books to read to the kids. There was two books in particular, one aimed at Kira's age and one aimed at Lewis's age, to read through for them. But when we got back into the car, I said to Pads I wasn't ready to tell them. I didn't want to tell the children because we didn't know how serious the situation was. Obviously cancer is serious, but we didn't know how big the tumour was. We didn't know, I think at this point the tumour was about 4 centimetres, 5 centimetres, something like that, but we didn't know anything else. And little did we know there was a lot worse to come with the diagnosis. So because it was in my lymph nodes, the protocol is that you get a scan, and they just check that it's not escaped out the lymph nodes into the rest of the body. So I had a scan, and a couple of weeks later, and then the results a week or so after that, and they found a lesion on the spine, and they were unsure whether that was down to an old injury that I had, because I'd always been active. It could have been an old injury, but they couldn't be sure, so they sent me away for a more in-depth scan. So I had that a couple of weeks later, and then the results again a week or so after that, and again it was inconclusive. And then I ended up having to have a PET scan, which is they inject you with a nuclear substance, like
a dye, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of like a dye. It goes around your body, and it makes it more. It takes the radioactive element of the whatever it is they inject you with, and that illuminates the cancer cells on the scan. So that's like, and it'll show up any areas that have small cancer deposits in your body. And amongst all of this, I was having appointments pretty much every week with various different consultants, and they'd said that book me in for surgery. So all the while I was seeing the surgeons, they were like, right, this is the surgery we'll do. We'll do a simple mastectomy, and we'll remove your lymph nodes, and then we'll put an implant in there. And then the next surgeon I saw, like, the tumour's quite large, so we won't put the implant in yet. We'll just do the mastectomy. And then the actual surgeon that was due to do my mastectomy, I hadn't actually met him yet. So he booked an appointment, and I remember this day, and I will remember it for the rest of my life. I was due to have my surgery on the Wednesday in February, and on the Tuesday afternoon I had to go in and see the surgeon that was doing my mastectomy, and he said, right, so we'll have a look at your breast, we'll see what we can do, I'll just see what I'm working with, and then we'll sort of get ready for your operation tomorrow. And I says, yeah, okay, that's fine. So he looked at it, and he's like humming and hawing over it. And he went, he says, have you been offered chemotherapy yet? And I says, no. I says, I haven't seen it. I haven't spoken to an oncologist. And I says, you should have had chemo. He says, I can't operate. Your tumour's too large. What? And little did I know, in the month that I'd been having all these scans, it had doubled in size. So it was fairly aggressive, and it was now 10 centimetres. So it was a really large tumour. And they wouldn't have been able to remove the breast and close the wound, because they'd have had to have taken all the skin off as well, so it wouldn't have been a safe operation. So he says, no, we can't do it, I'll have to refer you to oncology. Oh, and he says, I've got the results of your PET scan through. Yes, you've got it in your bones and your sternum and your spine, yeah, so, okay, right. And then he just left me, and I was just...
What?
Yeah.
So he's just as blasé as that. It's just as...
Yeah, and I think in his defence, I actually I've come to like this doctor, because he's fought my corner since. I think he thought I knew a bit more than I did.
Right.
And he was maybe just dropped these results and said, oh, can you just let her know what they are? So I think that's, in his defence, that's how he had to give me these results. So at that point, my life had ended. And both Paddy and I just sat there and cried. And he left. The doctor left. He says, oh, I've just got some things I need to do first. And off he went. And a nurse came in and was like comforting us, and she says, you know, there's things we can do. She kept saying, there's things we can do, there's things we can do. But I didn't want to listen to that at the time. That was it. I was going to die. I was going to leave my children behind. They wouldn't have a mum. Paddy wouldn't have a wife, you know, and that was the feelings that I was trying to process then. And there was one nurse, she's my nurse now actually, that I needed to speak to, but she was off that day, so I didn't get all the information that I got from her like down the line. So I had nobody really to tell me that there were things that they could actually do. So yeah, that day it will forever be etched in my mind as the worst day of my life. And we sat in the car, and the pair of us just cried. I had to phone my parents and tell my parents. I had to just try and process it myself, really, which when you're told you've got an incurable, potentially terminal diagnosis, it's hard. It's hard. I'd never used the T word. I never say that it's terminal. I say it's incurable but manageable. Is how I deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a diagnosis.
Wow. I can't imagine what your head must have just been all over the place. As you mentioned there, just
horrendous.
Not know which way to look.
No, I spent so many nights sitting up 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And I remember it being that week, because there was certain people that we had to tell. We had to tell our childminder, because she was looking after the children, and you know, some of my close friends, I had to tell them. Well, I didn't tell them personally. Paddy took all that out of my hands, and he bared the burden of having to tell people so that he could take it. He couldn't take the cancer away, but he could take away the practical elements. So it was hard telling people. And for, you know, that week was just, I had so many sleepless nights. I wasn't eating, and then all the while I'm like trying to, you know, be a proper mum to the kids and, you know, not worry them. But we ended up, we had to tell them. We had to tell the family, and telling mum and dad and my brothers and my grandma as well, that I had an incurable diagnosis. It was really, really hard, and I kept getting this ice cold feeling through my veins. I don't know what that is. I thought it was fear at the time. I think that's probably what it was, because, you know, I just spent every day terrified of what was going to happen, and I was angry because it made my family upset. I was angry at the cancer for upsetting them. You know, it was just pretty horrible, and sitting down telling the kids was
That's
hard.
what I was going to ask. So how do you go about telling, you know, young ones like that?
Yeah, I mean, with Kira, she's only 5, and she was 4 when I was diagnosed. So with her, I just said that, you know, Mummy had a lump in a boob, and it made it sore, and that they're going to have to take the boob off, and they'll put a fake one in, and then they'll give me some medicine that will just get rid of anything else, and make me feel better. He says, but the medicine will make me feel a little bit poorly. So she was just like, oh. And then she says, oh, okay, well, make sure the doctor doesn't throw your boob at you. That was forever stick with me. I don't know what goes through kids' minds. I was like, oh, okay. She didn't bat an eyelid. She doesn't understand. She's too little.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Which
told
is a
her
good thing in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't really remember much about it now. When I ask her about it now, she just knows that I've got a fake boob, and that's it. She can't even remember why I lost my hair. Which when she's older I'll tell her, but
yeah,
for now she's quite happy. Yeah, but with Lewis it was different. We sat down, I told him I had a lump. I didn't actually use the C word. I didn't call it cancer, rightly or wrongly, because a couple of years before we lost Paddy's dad to cancer. So we didn't want to associate the two, because there are so many different, there are hundreds of thousands of different types out there.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to associate it with that, so I gave it its proper name, which mine was an invasive ductal carcinoma. And I'd said that it was a lump, and if we leave it, then the lump of bad cells will eventually get worse, and it'll make me really poorly. So I said, what if somebody's got a real bad smashed up ankle that they can't fix, what would they do? And he says, they would amputate it. And I said, yeah. I said, well, that's because he was 10 last year when I was diagnosed. And I said, they would amputate it. And I said, well, that's exactly what they're going to do with my boobs, is they're going to take it off, they'll put a fake one in, and you'll never know the difference. And he said, okay. And I said, so are you okay with that? He says, yeah. And I said, well, I have to have some medicine as well. I have to have some treatment that they'll give me in my veins. And I says, but that'll make my hair fall out. And as soon as I told him that, he just burst into tears. And I was so angry that it made him so upset. But I think he knew, and speaking to him since, he did know, and he's always known that because he asked me if it was breast cancer earlier this year. And I told him it was. Obviously, they don't know about the bones element of it, but when they're older, I'll tell them about that. They just don't need to know at the minute.
No.
But it was upsetting having to tell them that, I'd lose my hair, I would possibly be laid up for months, I wouldn't really be much fun for a while. So I found that really hard, telling them that, and it was just, I was angry that I had to upset them like that. But in their fairness, they've taken it in their stride, and they were brilliant. And they really were. They were really good.
Can you just take us to the point of the chemo that you had and the medication that you had, and
so
sort of feelings and things that you went through?
Yeah, well, chemo's it's so different for different people, and you can have the same diagnosis and the chemo can be different, and or you can react differently to it. So I started, so I had to have 6 rounds of what was called EC chemotherapy. So epirubicin and cyclophosphamide was the 2 drugs that I had. And they were quite aggressive. I said to my oncologist, treat it as aggressively as you like. This is because, you need to blast this thing. Yeah. So she's like, okay, right. So she that's the regime that I went on. So that was an infusion, intravenous infusion every 3 weeks. Right. So I could either have had a port, which is like a tube that's inserted up on the top of your chest, and I think it goes down near your heart, and they just pierce that every time you get your drugs or your blood tests or anything. But they said if I had that, then I wouldn't be able to go to the gym. So I was like, nope, right, not doing that. I'll stick with having what do you call them, cannulas in the back of my hand. Yeah. So they were like, right, your veins will suffer. And I was like, I don't care. If it means I can still get to the gym, then, I'll deal with it when it happens. So I had my first chemotherapy session on I think it was the back end of February. And I'd said to Pad, right, because we'd just finished our loft conversion then, I said to Paddy, right, you're going to have to bring a chair up. I'm going to be laid up in bed. I'm going to, people are going to have to come and visit me in the bedroom and things like that. And because I'd had no real experience of seeing someone go through chemotherapy. Maybe, saw snippets, but never, really thought about it. So I had my first infusion, and they put the cannula in, and it's not a quick thing. You're in there for hours, and because the epirubicin is quite an aggressive drug, they have to hand administer it because it can burn your veins. So you sat there for a long time with this drug, and then I think it was about 4 or 5 hours later I was out, and Paddy's like, how are you feeling? You feeling okay? And I'm like, well, I think so. My legs were really dead. It made my legs feel so heavy, and I was like, well, good. Yeah, it's the weirdest feeling.
Like, when you've leant on one leg and it goes numb, that sort of
it's really, really strange. So we went to Tesco's and I was like, we'll pick up something for dinner. And he kept saying to me, you okay? You all right? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. But my legs are really tired. But it got to the point where I felt like I was dragging my legs through Tesco's because I was so tired. And then we got home and it was all fine. Mum and Dad had come down because at the time I was supposed to have a surgery and they were going to come down and help me out after surgery. But when that got cancelled, they just decided they would come down anyway. So they were, you know, making dinner and just, you know, just acting like normal. But that first, yeah, it did. I liked the normal.
Normally,
yeah, because I'm not a very good patient. I'm not very good at relaxing, and I'm not very good at doing as I'm told. So yeah, I'd said that I'd just kind of take it as it comes, and I says, for now I'm feeling okay, I can still do things. But they'd explained that, so you go on by days for your cycle. So day 1 is when you have your infusion, and so I always had mine on a Wednesday. So Wednesday I felt fine, Thursday, Friday, Saturday I felt okay, Sunday I would start to go downhill, and then Monday it was like I'd stepped off a cliff and I was so tired, drained. And it's not like the kind of tired that sleep can help. It just, I can't describe it. It's really strange. It just completely saps your energy. Your legs are heavy, your arms are heavy, your head feels heavy. It's an effort getting upstairs, and there was times where I was like crawling up the stairs just to get up to bed because I was really tired. But my oncologist had said to me back when I'd started chemo, she says the best thing you can do is keep moving. Keep going to the gym if you can, get outside for a walk, but just be careful around people, because that from the Monday to the Friday, after you have your chemo, your NUTs in your blood are really low, your neutrophils, so you're really susceptible to infection. So I had to, that week I would work from home, I would stay away from people. The kids were constantly on vitamin C, just so that they didn't bring any bugs into the house. I would stay away from the gym that week, maybe just walk around the block every now and then. Paddy would get me up and out and walk me around just to get a bit of fresh air. And then the following week I would feel absolutely fine, and I'd have 2 weeks of feeling really great. And then I'd have my other infusion, and then I would back downhill again. So yeah, I did find it hard, but not impossible. Shitty but doable is how I'd always described it. Shitty but doable. But it's so different for different people. I mean, I was really lucky in that the side effects were fairly minimal for me. So every infusion, I think for the first 2 infusions, I would, like, every morning I'd get up and I'd tug my hair because they say you'd lose your hair. And I'd be like, nope, still in my head, still got it, it's fine. But then it started, the third one, it started to come out in handfuls. And at that point, I'd said to Paddy, when it gets to that, I'm shaving it off. So we got Paula round with her clippers, and she taught the kids how to use the clippers, and they were, you know, clipping shapes into my head, and they gave me a mohawk. So we had a bit of fun with it, because I thought it would have been hard on them. I showed Lewis what it was like when my hair came out. So I'd run my hand through my hair and it would be a big clump, and he would get really he was like, oh, don't do that, Mum, that looks really sore. And I was like, well, it's not. I says, but we're going to shave it off and then I'll be bald. So he's like, right, okay. But they coped with it really well. And when I had my completely bald head, Kira was a bit funny with it, but Lewis actually was all right with it. And then he would always come up and hit me on the head, slap me on the head a bit. But I don't mind if they had a bit of fun with it, you know. I don't mind. No.
But how long did your chemo go on for?
So that went on for like February, March, April, May, June, end of June, beginning of July.
February to June.
February to the end of June. Yeah. So it was six sessions all in all, and I was ready for it to finish by the last one. I was done with it.
But then, imagine,
but the good thing with the chemo is, I mean, everybody has different experiences with it, but I noticed a difference in the tumour on like maybe 3 or 4 days after I had that first infusion. Wow. It had softened up so much, and then by the end of that first cycle I couldn't feel the lump at all. So yeah, really, really fortunate. Fortunate with quite a lot of things, actually. I didn't lose my eyebrows, I didn't lose my lashes, and I think that can make you look like a patient when you don't have that on your face. So I think I was able to hide it well. So I had my wig and my lashes and my eyebrows. So there was people that didn't know that I actually was going through chemotherapy at the time. My side effects were minimal, so I was so fortunate for that, and I thanked my lucky stars every day that it did what it did with the tumour. So there's people that aren't quite so
lucky,
fortunate,
I guess.
I love the fact that although you go through what you've gone through, you can still find some positives out of it. I think that's a really important.
Yeah, that's a massive thing. Like back when I was diagnosed, I'd said to Paddy that. So he said to me, really, that there's two ways we can deal with this. He says we can either lay down and wallow in it, or you can throw as much positivity as you can at it and deal with it. And at the time, a saying, I came across a saying, and I think it was meant for me at that time, if you see what I mean. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. And that's something that I lived by throughout the whole of my treatment, because I couldn't change the fact that I had cancer. I'll never be able to change that fact. But if I was to throw as much positivity as I could at it, then I firmly believe that would help in how my body copes with it.
Yeah.
And at the end of my treatment, so I had radiotherapy as well. At the end of all of that, I ended up having a complete response, and there was no cancer cells left in my body.
Wow.
The lesion on my bones, well, they had one possible lesion, and that was significantly less conspicuous, and it hasn't changed since chemotherapy. So I'm more than stable at the minute, and now all my appointments, instead of being 3 monthly scanned, I'm 6 monthly scanned. And I firmly believe that having that positive outlook and facing things head on has helped me no end cope with the diagnosis. And I would, if anyone's going through the same thing, I would, say that it's important to keep this positive mindset, because if you sort of drag yourself down with negative thoughts, then it makes things seem a whole lot worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. There's so much we don't understand about the brain and the mind.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful, and it has such an effect over our body that I can totally get where you were coming from there.
Yeah, massively so. And when my brothers, as soon as I was diagnosed, my brothers all came down to visit me and sort of lift my spirits a bit. And one of them had said the very same thing about positivity to me. He says, you've got to just, keep your head game strong. And that's something I've always said to myself, keep your head game strong.
Yeah.
And then he says, you can deal with anything. And it's true, actually, and that has just stuck with me the whole of this year. And I would say that to anyone that's going through a tough time, keep your head game strong. I mean, there will be times when there may be some hard news to deal with, but we don't know if and when that will happen. We've just got to deal with it as we have done with everything else before.
Yeah, and do you think the obviously your children is a massive why for you as well, and that gives you
hugely so.
Gives you more fight than most. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've got to be as normal as I can for them, and that was through chemo. I'd said to Pads I wanted to stay as normal as I could, so I would still run after them and shout at them for not tidying the rooms, and we'd still go out to the park, we'd still do stuff. And when I'd said to Lewis earlier this year, I says, oh, how were you ever scared? And he says, no, he says, you were just normal, so it never scared me. So that was a job well done in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the way they pick up on the way you act, don't they?
They're really intuitive. Massively
so than us, really adults. And I think, like you say, the more positive you can be, then they pick up on that rather than you feeling low all the time or showing them so much. What was the other thing? So you exercised a lot during chemo.
Yes.
Do you think that helped?
Massively so, yeah. When my oncologist and my nurse had said to me, that the exercise would sort of help stave off the side effects of chemo and help make you feel better, I thought, right, okay, that's what we'll do. And I didn't want to give up my little hour sanctuary in the gym. That was like my safe place in there. And I was able to let off steam. And when I first went in after I was diagnosed, it was hard kind of telling people. But when I'd said to the girls, right, I'm done talking about it. We don't talk about it in the gym anymore. I'd leave the cancer at the door and then I'd just train. As soon as I'd come in and say, everything okay? And I'd say, yeah. And then be like, right, okay, let's get some training done. And that's how I did it then. And I remember one day in particular, what were we doing? Wall balls. I remember doing wall balls, and I used to wear my little buff bandana when I was at the gym. Yeah. And it kept flicking up at the back, and I was like, oh, fuck's sake, this is really annoying. And Harry's just like, just take it off then. It's like, no, I'm not getting my bald head out. He's like, well, he says, you've got to do what's comfortable for you. He says, but if you're uncomfortable having your buff on, he says, then, So I kind of thought about it, and I was like, right, okay, now or never. And I'd never, ever got my bald head out in front of anyone outside of the house. So it was really quite difficult. And then I whipped it off. Not one person batted an eyelid. And the relief was incredible. So that ended up being my little safe haven as well. And I never chased PBs. I didn't lift heavy. It was just keeping moving. And exercise is good for the mind anyway. And it was just nice to feel a little bit normal.
Go in there for an hour, forget about everything.
Just forget about everything.
When you do those sort of workouts anyway, this why it is good for your head. It's because most of the time you're just thinking about breathing, aren't you?
Yeah.
You haven't got time for thinking about anything else.
No.
It's nice.
Exercise was just it was a godsend really. Just to not talk about it, just be me for a bit. I didn't get any pity looks from anyone. I did from one person, and I told them off, and they didn't do it after that. But it was just good, good to let out all the aggression on the kit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely, I would say to anyone who is possibly going through this, that exercise, even if it's just getting out for a walk around the street or just moving, it works wonders. It really does.
Yeah, you don't have to, like you say, you don't have to go out there, do PBs, lift heavy weight.
No.
I think, like you said, then you hit the nail on the head. Just moving, just doing something.
It's just getting moving, getting out. It's good for the mind, and it does stave away some of the side effects. Well, it did for me, stave away some of the side effects of chemotherapy. I think my worst one was heartburn. Oh, that was horrendous. I think that was worse than anything. I could literally feel it all the way up my neck.
Oh,
not pleasant, and no amount of drugs would get rid of that.
Was you given anything to sort of help with some of the side effects, or was it just a case of look, you need to just? They did give you bits,
They gave me. I had quite a cocktail of drugs to take in the days after an infusion. Steroids. There was stuff for the heartburn. Just various other drugs. So I always had, like, Paddy was my minder with my drugs, because you get something called chemo fog, chemo brain, and everything's just a little bit fuzzy, struggle thinking about things, can't think on the ball. So Paddy would always come up in the morning with water, coffee, drugs and toast. And that's how, I had my mornings. So I was a little bit slow.
Sounds like a good morning.
I had quite a lot of drugs to deal with the side effects, but it got to the point where I think maybe halfway through chemo, maybe on my fourth cycle, I was really feeling it with the steroids. They're horrible, horrible drugs. And my oncologist said, well, if you're not feeling sick, then you don't need to take them. So I was like, oh, I thought I had to. She's like, oh, no, you don't have to take them if you don't want to. So I stopped taking them, and I felt so much better not having taken the steroids. They made me so hungry. There was times when Paddy would come into the kitchen, I'm stood there with the fridge door open, just like literally eating things out of the fridge. It's no wonder I put so much weight on.
Sounds like my lockdown.
yeah. Pretty much.
That leads us quite nicely actually into lockdown and isolation.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very odd situation that we're all in at the moment, and it'd be really interesting just to get a take on, your sort of daily sort of structure and what you guys are doing and how you're dealing with it.
Well, it's a bit tricky, obviously, with the kids. Anyone that's got kids through lockdown, I think, is going through the same. And if they don't say that, then I think they're lying. But it's definitely tricky with the kids. I mean, we're still working. I'm working from home because of the diagnosis. I've put in a higher risk category than, I would say normal people, but we are normal. You know what I mean? Put in a slightly higher risk category. So I'm working from home. Paddy's still out at work, and then I've obviously got the kids at home trying to homeschool them and work at the same time. So it's quite tricky. And I stopped a long time ago looking at social media with every day, we've done this with the kids, we've made this, we've baked that, we're doing this lesson, that lesson. So I'm like, Jesus, they're either super mum or, God knows how they're managing it, because I can't manage it.
Yeah.
So it's quite tricky.
Yeah, well, we're struggling, definitely. Just trying to get them to sit down and do. Yeah. Just a simple thing of just sitting them down, do a few, a little bit of maths and stuff like that. But I think I've started come to the, just accepting it now that as long as they're happy, they'll soon catch back up. And if you do a little bit, then so long as you don't put too much stress on it, then
I think as long as their emotional well-being is that they're happy and they're healthy, then that's the main thing. Because I guess the teachers, when the kids go back, they'll be sort of geared towards bringing them up to a level where near to where they should be. And I think that's kind of what I forgot back in the early days of lockdown, was that I was worried that they would fall behind. But then when I sat down and thought about it, there's so many people that are in, riding the same storm, that are in the same place,
Exactly.
I kind of stopped worrying about it then. I get them to do a little bit. The deal we've struck with them is that they do schoolwork in the morning and then the afternoon's their own, and it means then that I can get work done around them. So that's kind of how we're dealing with it. We get out for a walk or a bike ride a day. I just make sure I keep away from people. And then when they get stroppy with each other, we kick them out in the garden.
Rain or shine.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. So just going on now, Alex. So what's the future hold? What's your plans?
Christ knows. That's a tricky one. For us. I do see a future, but not sure what we've got planned in it yet. We're married 10 years next year, so we want to do a nice big holiday. Lewis wants to go to the Maldives, but I don't know about that. So we've got a few like little bits and pieces planned, but at the minute we're just sort of living month by month, but looking a little bit. I'm allowing myself to look that little bit further into the future now. Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I was like, nah, that's it, you're going to be gone by Christmas, so there's no point. But it wasn't until I kind of pulled my socks up and started thinking a bit more into the future. I was like, nope, things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
just trying to get through this lockdown now, isn't it?
God, yeah. Oh, the kids can't go back to school soon, and I'm missing people. Actually missing the office. And I didn't ever think I'd hear the kids say it, but they're actually missing school as well.
Yeah, mine said it today, actually. Both of them.
It must be so hard for them, themselves. Really difficult. And anyone that I speak to, like all my friends, are in the exact same. They're struggling with homeschooling and working. They can't wait till they go back. Their kids are missing school. So, I think everybody's sort of in the same situation, really.
Same as you just mentioned then, the human connection. I think we're very fortunate this has happened in this time of age, and not like in the 90s or 80s where we couldn't get on the internet.
Yeah, God, can you imagine what that would have been like? Yeah, because you know I'd say to the kids all the time, we had none of this. We had no iPads, no phones. Kira actually said to me, "Was that because you didn't have any electricity?" Well, you're not that old. But yeah, they would just been so bored if this had happened back then.
Yeah, exactly. We're just fortunate it's happened there where we've had connection with the internet, but I think it's that physical, you know, just seeing someone near, you know, right there, or do you know what I mean, and speaking to them. I think it's a massive thing that I've felt like I've missed a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the human interaction, like you say, that's just I miss that. I miss talking to people that don't live in my house.
Yeah,
it was lovely yesterday actually with the VE Day celebrations. Like everybody in our street was sat out in the drives, and it was quite nice just to we came in for a bike ride just after 3, and riding down the street, there were so many people and they're out waving, and our builder lives at the end of the street, and we stopped to chat to him and his wife for a bit, and I got so excited because it was just like different people that we were talking to. New faces. It was really nice to see so many people out. But yeah, it's back to situation normal today. Nobody's out, everybody's in the back garden. So but at least it's sunny. That's a good thing. At least it's sunny.
The weather, if it had been raining this whole time.
Oh my God, it was bad enough a couple of days before, last week when the weather was miserable.
Yeah, definitely.
All the kids want to do is watch telly or play on the Xbox because you can't throw them out to play. But thankfully, the weather's a lot nicer. So they're going out in the garden today for sure. Definitely.
Get out.
Yes, out from under my feet.
That's brilliant, Stroma. Thank you so much for sharing your story. You're so great. There was a few moments there.
Yeah, I was like, no, hold it together. I'll be all right.
Be professional.
Quite a lot of those moments that I've learned to
just
keep a lid on now. So
hopefully this will get out there and help someone. Like we said before, if it can help one person, it'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. And even if anyone wants to chat about it, then I'm always available to chat. Definitely.
That's brilliant. So just for listeners out there, guys, if you like and subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel, you can also find us on Anchor app. Isn't that right, Danny?
Anchor app, all the episodes are being uploaded onto Anchor app. So follow the app, follow our Instagram, because you're going to also see on our Instagram up and coming guests. Just want to say a massive thank you to Stroma for coming on today, and
welcome.
Again, like we said at the beginning, to come and share your story for the first time as well. I think it has to be.
Yeah, we feel
very fortunate. Have to add that for the first time in the public domain to share that. It's how are you feeling about that now, Stroma? You feel okay?
Quite liberated.
Yeah.
I was so worried. Well, not worried. I was really nervous about it, but I'm kind of I feel all right now.
Good.
Liberated.
Yeah,
good.
Brilliant.
That's good.
Okay, guys, look forward to our next episode, episode 4. We've got Mark Coombs coming on. He's an ex-professional boxer. We're going to talk to him how he got into boxing, and also how you come out being a professional athlete like that, getting paid to do something you love, and then have to change your life. After that, I'm always quite interested to hear how people change. Such, that's because you hear it all the time that people the struggle that people have. So it'd be good to hear that.
It'd be interesting.
But again, thank you, Stroma, and guys, don't forget to check us out.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.